Hello everybody, this is a quick video on chi-square. Chi-square is a statistical analysis test, which compares two values to one another and determines if they are statistically significantly different or not. We can do this by using a null and alternative hypothesis. A null hypothesis assumes that two values are equal to one another in some way, while an alternative hypothesis assumes that two values are not equal. Let's apply this chi-square concept to an example. On this slide, we see a question which says, suppose a man is heterozygous for heterochromia, an autosomal dominant disorder, which causes two different colored eyes in an individual, and produced 30 offspring with his normal-eyed wife. Of their children, 20 were heterochromatic and 10 were normal-eyed. Calculate the chi-square value for this observation. As we see in the chart below, the observed values were written in the question. This is what you would see if you were running an experiment, or observing a particular scenario. In this case, we see that there are 20 heterochromatic children and 20 normal-eyed children. It is up to us now to determine the expected ratio of the phenotypes of the progeny. We can do this first by determining the parent's genotype. As we can see here, the father is heterozygous, whereas the mother is homozygous recessive. Upon analyzing the Punnett square, we can see that we have a 1/2 probability of having a child with heterochromia and a 1/2 probability of having a child with normal eyes. To determine our expected values, now what we need to do is multiply this probability by the total number of children to see how many of them we would expect to have a particular phenotype. In this case, we'll be multiplying 1/2 by 30 to determine that there are 15 expected children with heterochromatic eyes and 15 expected children with normal eyes. Notice that both of our observed and expected values have a total of 30. In any case, when you are doing a chi-square question, we should always expect to have our observed and expected values have the same total. So next, what we need to do is plug in our values into the chi-square equation. Here you can see the equation dictates the sum of all of our observed minus expected values squared, then divided by our expected values. This sounds a little complicated at first, but all you need to do is plug everything in and it'll make way more sense. Here we actually see a bit of a summation of everything we've done so far. At the bottom you can actually see the values we've plugged in into the previous question. Our final chi-squared value is 1.83. Now you might be asking to yourself, what does this mean? Well, to get any meaning out of this, we need to plug this into our chi-square table. So in order to do this, we need to find a couple of things. First, our degree of freedom, and then we need to understand our significance level. Degrees of freedom is easy to find because all it is the number of phenotypes you have minus 1. We had two phenotypes, heterochromia and normal eyes, and so we have 2 minus 1, which is equal to 1. All we need to do now is to look at our chi-square table and look along the row for a degree of freedom of 1. Now in our genetics class, we see that 0.05 is our agreed upon significance level. Think of this as being a measurement of how confident we are of our data. Now that we know both our degrees of freedom and our significance level, we see that the number to beat is 3.841. We know that our chi-square value is 1.83, which is less than 3.841. What can we figure out because of these differences? Well, this difference, 1.83 being less than 3.841, indicates that our expected and observed values are not significantly different, and that whatever variation exists between our expected and our observed values is normal. It's normal among random variation. However, if our chi-square value is greater than the p-value at a significance of 0.05, then our expected and observed values are significantly different, which would indicate that we are likely working with another mode of inheritance. So I hope that this helps. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to help.